Hi, everyone. It's Nina Collins, and we're live this morning. So I'm just getting my app up with Anna Winger from Berlin, which is why we're doing this at 10 in the morning because it's 4 there. And I'm sorry we're a little late. Anna had a school kid issue. So Anna's a writer, producer, screenwriter, photographer, and thank you. I'm so psyched to have you here. And we're just
Nice
going
to
to
be
chat.
here. Yeah.
So I can't remember
from
Anna,
the future. Yeah, sorry. No.
Wait, no, say that again.
No, I feel like I'm reporting from the future because our kids started school today, which we won't waste time on, but it is.
No, we want to hear about it. So you've been on.
They started it social distancing. They had to organize themselves outside. They made the classes really small. They go to school in shifts. Like they did it. And the kids wear masks and they wash their hands a million times. And then they came out and they only did 3 hours.
Okay, it's a long time to wear a mask.
They don't have to wear them when they're sitting at their desk because the desks are 2 meters apart and the windows are open. I have no idea how this is going to work in the winter, but in any case, they felt like it was really important that the kids get an experience what it's like to social distance at school. So they're going sporadically. It's not every day, but they're going like a couple days a week.
That sounds smart. And how old are your kids?
10 and 16.
Okay. And the 16-year-old also went back, both of them?
No, she's next week, the 10-year-old this week. So it's kind of all over the place, but it's, you know, in Berlin, everything is open now.
Okay, stores everywhere. You can go buy a pair of jeans.
Yeah, sure. Doctors' offices, they limit how many people can go into stores. You have to wear a mask inside. People don't necessarily wear masks outside, but it's much less crowded. So yeah, anyway, we're sort of tentatively trying to engage with the world, which is extremely weird when you've been home for 3 months. So it's, yeah.
I know, same for us. I've been home since March 18th or whatever, I guess a little earlier than that. And I think what you're describing sounds like what's going to start happening here next week. I mean, I think on June 8th in New York, stores are going to start to reopen. And yeah, have you socialized yet?
Yeah, so we have a garden. And so we have had a couple of times friends over. We put like 2 tables, like long ways, and they sat at the other end and we sat at one end and we had margaritas together.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, that's it. We launched this show during the pandemic. We've never had a party. We've never drunk a glass of champagne with the actors.
It's so sad,
right? So let's been to a festival, like nothing. And it's, we have a lot of young people on this show. It was their first really big role. And, normally the celebration is just such a great way to end working together. And it was so bizarre to do it like this. We spent sort of all day on our WhatsApp chat with everybody, kind of sharing impressions from the internet. Yeah.
Let's just back up for 2 seconds. So Anna we're pretty much the same age, right? I was born in 69.
I was born in 70 and I was a year behind you in college. Now I don't think know that, or you don't remember it.
Were you at Barnard?
I went to Columbia.
Okay. So I should say I met Anna about 10 to 15 years ago in Berlin.
When I first lived here, I think.
I was post-divorce, and for some reason I was going to Berlin by myself for a week. It was super depressing. It was the middle of winter, and I thought it'd be a great thing to go to Berlin for a week in the winter. And I had a pretty good week, but it was a little weird. I was very newly divorced, and I was a little out of it. Do we remember who introduced us?
I don't remember, but I think you had something to do with German publishing. Didn't you used to do
I'd worked for Bertelsmann for years. So anyway, someone introduced us and we met, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And Anna kindly invited me to the screening in New York of Unorthodox, which was at the JCC. The only screening at the JCC in Manhattan. And I think it was around March 13th. It was right. Okay. It was right when people started saying, let's not leave the house.
Yes.
And I wanted to go. And then that day, I think the night before might have been the last night I kind of went out publicly. And that day I was like, I better not go. And I didn't go. And then
I didn't go to New York.
You didn't go to New York. That's right. I was hoping to see you. And then I watched it here on Netflix at the beach where I've been since like the 18th of March. I watched it the first night. I think it came out on Netflix and loved it. And I have to say, I don't think you know this. I have one of my favorite books when I graduated from college in 1990, and then I became a scout for Bertelsmann and other foreign publishers. And I read the novel in 1995, The Romance Reader by Pearl Abraham. Have you ever read that? You've not even heard of it? Oh my God. It's this really amazing novel, basically telling the same story. It's a very, very similar story. She doesn't go to Berlin, but it's about a woman in New York who leaves her family, an Orthodox woman. And it's just a fabulous, fabulous book. So I've always kind of had a fascination with that community, with the Hasidic
Yeah.
community. So, um,
Well, I
all
mean,
right.
I think, you're living in Brooklyn and that you're living among, I mean, you often see people from the community, of course. That's something, what's been really interesting for us about the reception of the show in the world, is just how many, it's been really popular in places where people have no contact with Hasidic Jews, let alone any Jews.
That is interesting.
Latin America, Turkey, India, like where people have just loved it. And that's been so touching for all of us who are involved in the show, because it was, that it crosses boundaries of faith and culture, like in ways, language, because it's always in Yiddish, and the English is dubbed into various languages on Netflix, but the Yiddish is never dubbed. It's always Yiddish. So that was it was a big effort, of course, to do it in Yiddish. And that was really important to us. So they agreed not to dub that part of it. So I just love that people in New Delhi or wherever, Kenya, are watching it in Yiddish and really
Amazing.
responding to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed on Instagram there seems to be a huge fandom in Spain, or is it just me? It seems like there's all this Spanish Instagramming about it.
Yeah, and it's called Poca Ortodoxa in Spanish. And it's been wild. Like first it started in Spain, and then in Latin America, it's been really popular. And, of course, there are Jewish communities in that part of the world, but not so many.
Yeah.
And so it's really, there's also a lot of curiosity. People want to know more. People have made their own like YouTube lectures about explaining things about unorthodox, which is so cute. Like for us, it's really interesting to see the kind of fan fiction around it, the kind of the fan material, and more than ever because everybody's at home. So
Yeah. Yeah.
time to do that. So it's kind of a combination between the global drop that you get with Netflix. I make another show that is on in 150 countries, I think, but in every country, it's on a different broadcaster. So it's
that's
like
Deutschland 83 and Deutschland 86, right?
Yeah, in
Which
America, it's on Amazon and Hulu. It's but it's like every country. It's on somewhere in Australia. It's on somewhere in Argentina, but I don't know where.
Okay.
And Russia, whatever. But what's so kind of miraculous and cool about Netflix is like everybody gets at the same moment, and you've got like 190 countries or something, same minute they get this show, and then they can communicate about it on social media. So there's, for this moment where everybody's at home, it's been really special.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So with Deutschland 83 and Deutschland 86, which are your other two big shows, I haven't seen them, and now I'm going to. I didn't even know I could. So they're on Amazon and Hulu for everyone, and we should watch them. Were they as hugely, it sounds like they were as hugely successful as this. Has this been a different kind of experience in terms of recognition? Is it similar? Tell us a little bit about you. Like what have you done your whole career?
I don't have such a perception of how successful this is outside my house. I mean, like, let's just say I haven't been anywhere. I think that it's really cool that we've gotten such a great reception. I think that people really, with Deutschland, it broke through a lot as well. But it's different because I always write in English, but we shoot Deutschland in German. And we shot this obviously in English and Yiddish, but because it's more America focused, and I'm American, it feels a little bit more like an American show, even though we shot almost the whole thing in Berlin as well. We shot all the Williamsburg interiors in Berlin too. And, I'm American and I'm making TV, but I guess in a way I'm doing American style TV, but I'm working in a kind of satellite office of, I'm not working in the belly of the beast, right? So it's working in Berlin is an advantage, and it's both positive and negative. Like I think sometimes I really miss being able to live in a community of people writing in my language and thinking like about the same things in a way, because I think I still have really a sort of American politics in my mind and stuff, but in a way, being able to write it or remove from what other people are doing is also kind of
it's also kind of liberating and freeing.
Liberating.
Yeah.
So I think it goes both ways. And in Germany they make a lot of TV, but it's generally different from the kind of TV that we do. There's less horizontal storytelling, less high-end production. It's a lot of crime, and there are a few really great shows like Babylon Berlin, but they're the exception rather than the rule, that kind
Yeah.
of work. And so, yeah, I think, I mean, I haven't done this for very long. Like, I'm actually a great story for the Wolfer, because
Okay.
I
Let's
have
hear.
had many, I just feel that women have many careers. And
Right. I
it's like,
think when I met you, you were working on maybe a novel.
I wrote a novel. So I was a photographer for years.
Okay.
And I worked in advertising. I worked as a documentary photographer and art photographer. And I did also, when I lived in New York, I did a lot of advertising, some fashion. And then I had kids. I did a lot of nothing other than children, which was, really, really cozy. And during that time, I very slowly wrote a novel, which was published 10 years ago. And that's the only novel I ever wrote.
What's it called and who published it?
It's published by Riverhead, and it's called This Must Be the Place.
Okay.
And I have attempted to write a second novel, which I've never finished because I got kind of caught up in doing this. So it's the thing about screenwriting, which I came to very late. I think I never wrote a screenplay before I was 40, is
very cool.
It's just that it brings together photography and novel writing. It's kind of both. And you're right, you're telling a story through pictures, you're imagining what it looks like as you're writing it. So it has in a way, it feels like it brings together everything I did before. Like, it makes sense to me, but it always sounds funny to other people because I didn't come to it from on a traditional path.
Yeah,
So,
no, I understand that feeling of everything. I mean, I think that is a unique thing sometimes about getting older. Like even with the Wolfer community, to me, it really makes sense that like I've always been interested in women's stories, and I come from a background in media and publishing, and I don't know, there are all sorts of things in my life that I feel led me to doing this right now. And anyway, that's super cool.
Your book was amazing. I bought that book in Maine one summer, like 2 summers or 3 summers ago when it came out. I saw it on a table and I realized that I knew you and that you'd written this book. And then I read it and it was full of so much information that nobody else had ever told me. I was like, I have to buy 17 copies of this and give it to all my friends. Like,
I always say that
all this information. I really felt that way. I haven't even told you that before. And it was, I was blown away by it. I bought multiple copies, brought them back, gave them to my friends because nobody talks about any of the stuff that's in that book.
You're so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I often feel like if we've done any good in the world, at least we've really enlightened people about vaginal dryness. And that's a good thing.
The tip of the iceberg. There was so much in there. I was like, what? I think I was 46. I was like, what? And it's, written by someone I know, which means it's like, somehow reputable source.
That's so funny. So on Unorthodox, did you write the screenplay? What's your exact role in this program?
So, I have my own company. I produced it, packaged it, wrote it with somebody else. I always work collaboratively, sometimes in larger writers' rooms. In this case, it was primarily with one person. Her name's Alexa Karolinski. She's a documentary filmmaker.
Is she German?
She's German. Yeah, she's German. She's Jewish, and she's done 2 amazing documentaries about the experience of being Jewish in Germany, which really speak to, she's not religious, but it speaks to sort of cultural politics, post-Holocaust politics. And I really, I think that when you make a TV show, you kind of build a village around a project with the people that you want to be in conversation with about the things that you're doing or the things that the project is making you think about. And I knew with Alexa, who I knew her a little bit, but not so well before we did this, I knew that, she was someone with whom I wanted to have this conversation. And I sold it to Netflix because, it's made by my company, and so I was
What's your company called?
Called Studio Airlift, and it's in Berlin. And so, but we work in very intimate constellations of people. So like the director on this show, her name is Maria Schrader. She's the star of my other show.
Ah, okay. I can't wait. Now I'm going to watch your other show tonight. I'm so excited.
So it's really different from Hollywood in a way. Like, I feel like we're working much more like, it's a little bit more like making art house movies or something.
Yeah,
like,
it sounds very European. It sounds awesome.
It's like there's like a few people and you're kind of in this huddle. And the thing about Unorthodox is it's inspired by a memoir written by a mom at our school who was a friend.
So I was wondering how it came about. So Deborah Feldman, who wrote the book,
which is a wonderful book, although the book is very different. You know, we changed many things, but anyone who liked the show should read the book because the book is fantastic. And it's a memoir of her life. It's much more in depth about the community. But she lives in Berlin and her son goes to school with my kids. And so that's how we knew each other and we're friends. And so it was, in a way, the project grew out of our conversations also. So it was,
Wow. That's
and
kind
she,
of a lot of pressure, like to make it well for your friend.
I guess, although it was she who suggested it.
Okay.
Fair. She was like, how about you make a TV show out of my book? And I was like, well, I'm not used to working from existing material. I think it needs to, I need to be able to break it apart and put it back together differently. And she was like, okay, I trust you. And she knows Alexa too. Like, we're all friends. So
Nice.
it was kind of came about organically. She also knows Maria, the director. And
God, what
yeah,
a treat to be able to
it-
all work together on a project and then have it come out so unbelievably beautiful. I was going to ask, the costume design is so
yeah.
extraordinary. Like, it's so amazing.
Yeah.
Have you worked with that person before? And I mean, I'm sure you'll get nominations for that. It's incredible.
Well, we hope so. I mean, she deserves it. Her name is Justine Seymour. She's British. She's lived in LA for a long time. She's amazing. I'm going to work with her on everything. And the funny part is her daughter is like a mentee of mine. She's a screenwriter in Berlin. She's British German, and she used to run the NPR station here. So we know each other through that because I used to do some NPR projects. And then she has started now screenwriting, and she made, I don't know if you saw it, but at the end on Netflix on the service, there's this making of Unorthodox.
Oh yeah, I did. It was great.
She made it.
Oh, wow.
Now to get into the real, like, how small this community is. So her name is Marley Melchior. She made it. And then at some point early in this project, when I was still just like figuring out who to hire for all the department heads, Marley was like, you know, my mom is a costume designer. And it was so embarrassing because I was like, you know, it's like saying, you know, my cousin works in, you know, does catering. And you're like, yeah, yeah. And then I looked up her mother and I was like, holy shit, her mother is
like incredible
costume designer, like, which, you know, is usually not the case when someone tells you, like, my cousin is
my mom does this. Yeah.
So we always joke about that now, because then I was like, we would be so lucky if this woman wants to do this. So then we met, and then she came on and she moved to Berlin to do it, which is great. She spent the whole, you know, like 6 months here with us. And
okay, this is all making me feel very jealous. I want your life. It sounds so fun.
It was like very cozy. And then Marley made that making of, so she was always with us, which was really nice.
How old is Marley?
Marley's 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and she's also writing some great stuff now. But that making of is just so beautiful. And, you know, I had almost nothing to do with it other than, you know, asking her if she wanted to do it. Like, she showed it to me and I thought it was so moving.
It's gorgeous. It's great. Yeah, I watched it right away. I watched it right after I watched the series. Yeah.
It's been a huge hit for her, which is really cool.
So I have a few like various questions. Will there be a sequel? So are you doing a next season?
No, it's a limited series.
It's limited. So, it's done.
Yeah. I mean, if we ever revisited the characters, which of course, you know, you can't help but wonder about it, I think we would spin them off in a different direction in some way, because we never imagined just going on with the story that's told in that. We feel like that is a kind of beautiful arc. But there were conversations that came up while we were doing it around some of the characters that we thought would be interesting. You know, Moisha is a character we made up completely.
Okay.
He's not in the book. We also activated the book is very different because it doesn't really tell the story from the husband's point of view. So we also have the sort of husband is activated as a character in the show. But Moisha we made up, and we kind of love his character. But you know, so I don't know. I think some things go on too long, and it's fun to have made something that is just kind of.
It's true. I mean, most things go on too long, and you know, whatever. I totally understand and respect that. It's just she's such a Esty, so you know, you want to know what happens to her next.
Shira Haas is the name of the actress. She's just so talented, and she's, you know, really carries this story. Like she's her face always has, you know, two emotions. My friend Pamela pointed this out, and I think it's really true that she always has two things going at the same time. Like she has two emotions happening at the same time on her face. Like she's just so expressive, and it was really a pleasure to work with her, and I would love to work with her again. I also think she'll be a great director at some point.
How old is she?
She's 20. She just turned 25, so she was 24 when we were shooting.
So young, and she's so tiny. I mean, she's really unusual looking, and it's actually been super fun to watch her on Instagram, all the various kind of incarnations of her. Um, and that guy, what's the other guy's name? The Yakov character.
Yeah, Amit Rahav is the actor, and what's really cool is that they're really old friends. So I think that really helped them with like the intimacy of their performance.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of trust with each other. They've known each other since they were like 10. So they really.
I haven't read about these. Were a lot of the actors Orthodox from the Hasidic community? Not at all. Were any? Like, how did you deal with that?
So Amit and Shira are not at all. They're both from non-religious families. They're both from Israel. Jeff Wilbush, who played Moishe, is from the community. He's actually Satmar. He's not just Hasidic, but he's from the Satmar community. He grew up in Mea Shearim in Jerusalem, and he came to acting school in Germany. So he actually lives in Berlin.
Wow,
amazing! But he's a native Yiddish speaker, which was really important because. And then Ellie Rosen, who plays the rabbi, he is from Borough Park, and he was also our Yiddish translator and our cultural coach and dialect coach for the actors. So he helped the actors learn their Yiddish, and he was the rabbi. And so Jeff and Ellie, in a way, were both like very much of the community. And then there were many of their friends played smaller roles, like the and actually a lot of the actors come from the New Yiddish Rep, which is a theater in New York that's entirely in Yiddish. And including Michal Birnbaum, who plays the bridal teacher, the one who teaches her about sex.
I wondered in that bridal scene, it just felt so authentic. I felt like these have to be people from the real community. It was so.
Oh, you mean the wedding? Yeah, no, we had a lot
of
people of their friends who were also formerly of the community came over and were either extras or in small roles. So,
you're Jewish, right? Do you have a lot of relationship to Israel? Like, was this all just new to you completely, this world?
It wasn't new to me. I mean, in the sense, well, first of all, because I was a photographer, I used to do a lot of business with Hasidic men.
Okay.
The photography world in New York is kind of the whole back end of it.
Like B&H and all those,
rental houses and, supplies and labs and stuff. A lot of it is Hasidic owned. So, or at least it was when I was a photographer. So I had a fair amount to do with Hasidic men. I had nothing to do with Hasidic women. But, there's a broad spectrum of Jewish experience. And in a way, I'm at one end and that's at the other, but it's not totally unfamiliar. There was many things that once you get into it, don't feel so distant. And I think it was very striking, like that there's more that unites us than divides us. There was because there's a lot of emphasis on, all the differences between different kinds of Jewish experience. And there are very many, shades of gray between mine and theirs. And yet were a lot of things that were familiar about even that world once I got into it, which was nice. And it was a lot of fun to work with Israelis. I had worked on one Israeli project in the past, but this was I just loved the actors on the show. They were really great. So it was a really kind of nice community built up around the project.
That's great. It's made me go, and I'm sure lots of other people, right, to watch these other Israeli shows on Netflix. I can't pronounce them.
Yeah.
Shtisel.
Well, actually, Shira's in Shtisel. When she was, they shot Shtisel a long time ago. It was made in 2013. Shira plays the daughter of the daughter.
She's the daughter. Yeah.
And she's very young in that. I think she was 16 when she made that. So
yeah, she's great in it. It's really, really good.
Fantastic.
So what's next for you?
I am making a bunch of other things now. I mean, I use that term broadly because we're obviously not shooting anything at the moment. I'm writing, and we'll see when it's possible to shoot these things. I have a couple of different series. I'm collaborating with different people. You're never supposed to talk about stuff until it's announced. But
that's okay.
One is set in the future, two are set in various historical settings, which makes it easier because you don't have to decide if everybody's wearing a mask or whatever. I think there's a lot of anxiety in the kind of contemporary world of television around whether we have to accommodate social distancing, masks, blah, blah, blah. And
I
then you
know. I
can
mean, I'm sure you've felt that, right? Everyone has that weird experience now of watching TV and feeling like, wait, they're doing it wrong. You're not supposed to touch people. Like you feel.
You know what's weird? I watched the pilot of Space Force, the new Steve Carell show on Netflix the other day, and I actually thought they were social distancing throughout the pilot. And I wondered, either they shot it like that by chance, or they reshot those scenes in order to accommodate some sense of normalcy now, which would be amazing if they did that, or it really is just by chance the way they shot it. If anyone else watches it, I would like to know what you think, because there's a couple of scenes, one where a bunch of people are eating in a restaurant, and the other when someone's speaking in public, and then there's a kind of auditorium sporadically populated with people sitting at a distance from one another. And I was like, wait. And I literally went on and Googled when they stopped shooting, and it said in January. So then,
Huh.
unless they reshot those scenes. Yeah. So
it's, what is it called? Space Force, Steve Carell?
it's a comedy starring Steve Carell that's about Space Force.
Okay. All right. I'll look it up.
Pretty funny. Yeah, on Netflix. But it's just weird how it looks already. And now, of course, when you see people like, you know, breathing all over each other on TV, you're like, oh no, oh wait.
I know, it's horrifying. It's really, but do you
No.
think we'll go back to normal?
You know, that's a really big question. I mean, I've told myself like, okay, I'm writing a whole bunch of things right now, and I'm just going to keep writing these screenplays until the end of 2020. And then we'll see. Like if we have no perspective on when we're going to be able to shoot, then I guess, you know, that'll be the time to go back to writing novels, because it would be bizarre to write so many scripts, I guess, that can't be shot. But I think that we will figure out ways around it. And
Yeah.
I do think that there will, you know, if we find a treatment or
Yeah, a vaccine or
let's hope a vaccine, then I mean, I certainly think not everything will go back to normal. I think there's, I don't know what you think, but I feel that there's going to be really big differences in things like business travel or
business. Right.
office time.
Offices,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, whoever wants to go to an office again, like whoever wants to sit, I don't know. I used to do things like go to Amsterdam for lunch. You know, it's like, it just is completely ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Why bother? Yeah.
we could have that meeting on Zoom, you know, and now we know that we can have those meetings.
Yeah. I mean, I was having meetings on Zoom before all this, and now it does feel like it's just an easier way to work. And I am really, like a lot of people, I mean, it sounds like you've been enormously busy, obviously, with Unorthodox, but it's all this kind of being at home and like exercising more and being in nature more. Like I've been staying out at the beach. And so I've never been out here for more than a week or two, and taking long walks every day and really paying attention to birds and all these things that I've never done do feel kind of revelatory in a way. But it's very confusing for all of us. Like, am I going to go, like what is our life going to look like in 6 months? Who knows?
Well, the question of what happens to the United States is rather massive, and so that's a larger conversation, I guess. But
yeah,
you know, there's the COVID thing, and then there's everything else, right? That
Yeah.
has come to the surface as a result of this moment in our history. And yeah, let's just
where are
hope.
you from in the States?
I'm from Massachusetts, but
Okay.
I have an unusual. I had an unusual upbringing because my parents are anthropologists, and
Mhm.
they met in Nigeria. And so then we lived in East Africa when I was a child, and we lived in Mexico when I was a teenager. So I've lived in lots of places, and I've lived here for 17 years.
Wow.
But I feel very American. And my mother's actually British.
And
but I somehow feel American. And I lived in New York for the longest. I lived in New York. I went to Columbia, and then I lived there more or less until I was in my early to mid 30s. So
okay, all right, but we didn't know each other there. We just must know a lot of people in common somehow. Yeah.
And we did go to college together, but I don't remember you from college either. I just looked up at one point and realized, like, okay, I graduated in 93. So we only overlapped, I guess,
we actually only overlapped for a year because I went to college early. So I graduated in 90.
All right.
So
And that's why we didn't know each other. Yeah.
But also, my mother had died in college, and I lived off campus, and I worked like 40 hours a week. It was not, I mean, I loved Barnard. I'm grateful for it, but I'm actually speaking tonight at my 30th Barnard reunion on Zoom.
On Zoom.
Yeah, it's going to be really funny.
Well, your mother's work is incredible, and it's been on the Criterion channel.
Yeah, it's been so great. I know, it's really nice.
One of my gifts to myself during this quarantine was to get a VPN and join the Criterion channel, and that has been such a gift. And if anyone watching this hasn't joined that, you really should, because all the movies, I mean, it's just like All
It's
the things you wanted to
unbelievable.
see that you didn't know how.
I know. And you can actually just scroll through. It's like an evening entertainment in itself, just reading their catalog. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's incredible. And then you have
Yeah.
also people talking about their favorite movies. You can, hear, and then they tell you, they recommend the movies, then you can watch the movies they recommended. I mean, it is for somebody. I majored in film theory at Columbia, and it's like, it's just delicious. So anyway, your mother's work, is it still up? Because when I
It
saw
is.
it was up. It's still up. Yeah,
I think it's
that
still.
was incredible. I mean, that was so hard to access before.
Yeah, no, it's really great. I'm really glad about it.
Yeah.
This was so fun, Anna. I haven't seen you in a million years. We've just
I know.
communicated by email. So
Come
thank
back
you.
to Berlin
I
sometime.
want to. I'm really so jealous that you've had this whole life there. It's great. Really,
was
thank you so much. And I just can't, I'm going to start watching Deutschland, but I can't thank you enough for Unorthodox. It's fabulous. I really loved it. And I know everyone did. So thank you.